I call to order this regular meeting of the Scottsdale Unified School District Governing Board. Today is August 6th, and the time is 6 p.m. Welcome to everyone. And Vice President Lindsay, can you lead us in the pledge, please?
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will have a roll call of the board members, starting from my far right, please.
Karen Warner.
Amy Carney.
Julie Sanowski.
Zach Lindsay.
And Libby Hart-Wells. There are 5 board members present, and we have a quorum. And board member will proceed with our district business. All right, I have received a few requests to amend the agenda, starting with the consent agenda. We will pull outside of the consent agenda items 7H, 7Q, 7I, and 7T, as in Tom, only with respect to the one administrative new hire. The rest of the personnel action items will stay inside the consent agenda. And a request to table until a future governing board meeting, item 8G. So I move to approve the board agenda as amended. Is there a second?
A question.
Yes, Ms. Zanowski.
What is the impact of pulling 8G on our work as a district?
My understanding is this is to help inform the policy that is proposed with a peer district who has a similar policy, to allow time to make that comparison and analysis. There is no adverse impact on the timing of any activity that I've been made aware of.
Thank you, Board President Dr. Hart-Wells.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Warner seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. All right. We'd like to remind those who are attending this evening of our meeting decorum. Citizens attending and/or participating in the Scottsdale Unified School District meetings, either in person, virtually, or telephonically, are required to observe the same rules of order and decorum applicable to members of the governing board and staff. Unauthorized remarks or demonstrations from members of the audience, yells, outbursts, and/or other disruptions are not permitted. All right, at this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Menzel to present the staff and student recognitions and celebrations this evening, to be immediately followed by your superintendent comments.
Well, good evening, President Hart-Wells, Vice President Lindsay, and members of the governing board, and welcome back. This is our first meeting since the end of June. Yesterday, Scottsdale Unified School District was proud to kick off our 128th year of teaching and learning. We've come a long way since the Little Red Schoolhouse. By all accounts, the new school year is getting off to a strong start. Now, in some years, we've not had celebrations to share with you at this first meeting in August, but I'm happy to report, and you will be pleased to learn, that we have several to share with you this evening. First off, Scottsdale Unified School District was part of a huge celebration in late June with one of our community partners, and our communications director, Christine Harrington, is going to tell us how some SUSD students contributed to its success. Christine.
Good evening, President Hart-Wells, Vice President Lindsay, governing board members, Dr. Menzel, and Ms. Wagner. I'd like to invite students from Chaparral High School's Trium Music Honor Society, their band director, also Saguaro High School's Sisters in STEM, and Ms. Lindberg, if you'd like to step forward, as well as other Saguaro classmates, and a new Mojave Middle School Wildcat. Up to the podium, please. In late June, SUSD was the proud sponsor, along with Arizona PBS and the McDowell Sonoran Conservancy's Children Learning Play Festival at Westworld. All of these students were there to help tell the SUSD story. It was amazing, such fun, a little exhausting if we're being honest, because over the course of 6 hours, hundreds of families came through and engaged with these students. They played all kinds of instruments. Many families were blown away that our kids have that opportunity in elementary school as well. So it was super fun to see. They got to engage with all kinds of educators and authors from around the valley, but I do believe we had the best booth, right guys? Totally, hands down. Yeah, so this sort of community event, it's a huge undertaking, especially in the summer. The end of June, just before the 4th of July holiday weekend. But when we asked for volunteers, these students were ready to go and happy to help share their SUSD experiences. So the music students from Chaparral organized a new, sorry guys, you're this way, a new exhibit this year, something they call the Instrument Petting Zoo, to share their passion for music with other kids. The children got to try out different instruments from the Musics for Families, woodwinds, brass, strings, and percussion. So who knows, maybe you all have inspired a young future musician out there. Many thanks to you all and to your band director, club sponsor, Jennifer Moreau, for helping us pull this off. And then Saguaro High School Sisters in STEM, led of course by Susan Lindberg, showed the kids how to complete a circuit, help them match nitrogenous base pairs to form a DNA strand? Yeah, totally. So that happened, and they got to learn that their hands are warm enough to make ethyl alcohol boil and experience levitating magnets. It was super cool. I don't know if the kids or the parents were having more fun. They were all very impressed. Redfield principal, also Amanda Rand, joined her teachers, engaging the very youngest learners there with their very first coding experience with working with the Ozobots. So that was super cool too. And then Caitlin Friedman, where are you? She was our cockroach wrangler. That was all quite something. We had all the little critters out there. And Cameron Friedman was great at handing out coloring books, sharing that SUSD journey with families. And Kayla Yerkes was sharing her DLI experience that she's had in SUSD since the age of 3 you've been here. So never took a break. Quick pizza lunch, I think, but they're just a small sampling of the amazing SUSD students that we have that continue to share their journey with the public and are a great example. So thank you guys for sharing your servant heart and our story with the community. We have a challenge coin for each of you. So thank you very much.
We truly are grateful for your volunteering during the summer hours and excited to see what you're going to do this next school year. So we're looking forward to hearing more as the school year unfolds. But thank you to our students. Thank you to the staff who took time out of your summers to make this possible. And all of the feedback that I've received from people indicated that it was the best booth. So thank you.
And we're going to step outside to take a picture. So we'll get.
The learning that is facilitated by our school district's outstanding educators at every level, whether it's early childhood teachers helping our youngest students get acclimated to our warm and welcoming classroom environments, or our middle school educators laying the critical groundwork for their high school colleagues, SUSD can boast of having some of the finest teachers anywhere. I feel confident in saying that. One of them joins us tonight. We have welcomed him to this forum in the past. Dr. Kim Dodds-Karen is here to tell us about this outstanding educator from Saguaro High School.
Good evening, President Dr. Hartwells, Vice President Lindsay, Governing Board members, Dr. Menzel, and Mrs. Wagner. Thank you for inviting me to share another wonderful SUSD celebration with you this evening. I'm proud to welcome Ashley Kroos, a social studies teacher and department chair from Saguaro High School, to join me this evening at the podium. Ashley and I have known each other in SUSD for quite some time, so this is pretty special. Now in his 22nd year of bringing exceptional learning opportunities to students of Saguaro High School, I'm never surprised at the thoughtful hard work and dedication that Ashley brings to his classroom. In recent years, we've recognized him as a semifinalist for the Arizona Teacher of the Year honors, celebrated him as becoming a nationally board certified teacher, a Charros Outstanding Educator, and a Daughters of the American Revolution honoree. He is the author of the SUSD Holocaust Genocide Studies elective program and is a United States Holocaust Museum Teacher Fellow. He serves on the NAU K-12 Center's Board of Directors And somehow he manages to do this all within 24 hours in a day, as a great husband and an awesome dad. And so it's no wonder that the Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History is recognizing Mr. Croce as Arizona's 2024 History Teacher of the Year. The Gilder Lehrman Institute, based in New York City, is the nation's leading nonprofit organization dedicated to K-12 history education. Its mission is to promote the knowledge and understanding of American history through educational programs and resources. The Gilder Lehrman Collection is one of the greatest archives of American history documents. It's not just the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. This provides teachers, students, and the general public with direct access to unique primary source materials. So our high school students and SUSD are the beneficiaries of the connections that Mr. Croce has made with this institute. He brings history to life, and he's always looking for and finding ways to fine-tune his skills to positively impact teaching and learning at Saguaro. Ashley, we are so proud of you. Congratulations, and accept this challenge coin.
Thank you, thank you.
You're welcome. And I think he has a few words to say to you.
I do, I have a few words, and I wrote them down so I would not forget anybody, and my daughter was reading this on the way over, and she said, "Dad, you forgot me." And so, with that long list, there are sacrifices that I do have to make with my family, so I do thank my wife and my daughter who are here tonight, and now they're prepared words, but thank you so much for having me tonight. I need to thank the Gilder Lehrman Institute for this great honor, but I would be remiss to say that if I didn't thank my scholars in my classes, my colleagues at Saguaro, and my site administration, Mrs. A, Mr. Milligan, Mr. Harris, and Mrs. Richard, and district leadership with Dr. Menzel, and my academic coaches. My passion lies in teaching and learning, and Miss A and Dr. Menzel's leadership. With their leadership, my passion, successes, academic growth has increased greatly. I love the district themes this past couple years, Because Kids and Elevating Excellence. This award is because kids and the amazing things they accomplish in my class every day. Many of my scholars this year, or this week, have been coming back to me and saying how excited they are to receive their AP scores, connections they have made in history from reading books from their English classes over the summer with the summer reading programs. They are truly the ones elevating the excellence. I look forward to representing SUSD in Arizona for the selection for the National History Teacher of the Year award that we'll know here in a couple of weeks. But more importantly, I look forward to being back in the classroom, making connections with students, making students more curious about history, and having them want to learn more about history and doing their best. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Mr. Croce. Your passion and dedication hasn't gone unnoticed. I've had the opportunity to visit his classroom. I wish that when I was a student, I would have had a teacher like Mr. Croce because he's inspiring, engaging, and truly deserving of this recognition. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Our next celebration is one that's a little overdue because of our summer schedule, but worth the wait. Our Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education, Dr. Melissa Sackos, is going to handle our formal district celebration of an accolade that was received at the end of last school year. Dr. Sackos.
All right, good evening, President Hartwells, Vice President Lindsay, governing board members, Dr. Menzel, and Ms. Wagner. It is my pleasure tonight to invite members of the Echo Canyon School community. We have Principal Kat Hughes, we have Assistant Principal Aaron Cadera, and I see a lot of Jaguars out here in the audience. So why don't you join me at the podium? Yay, you can clap, you can clap. We are also happy to have the Executive Director of the Scottsdale Blue Zones Project, Sarah Kearney, with us this evening. Oh, you're already up here. All right, you joined the Jaguars. Thank you for doing that. And also SUSD's Nutrition Services Director, Patty Bilbrey, who's also a member. Come on up, Patty. There we go. She's a member of the local Blue Zone Schools Committee. The Blue Zones Project is a part of a worldwide undertaking to bring our community the optimized living, working, and playing environments that contribute to what are called longevity hotspots around the world, where people routinely live to be more than 100 years old. SUSD's involvement in Blue Zones is to contribute what it can do to support healthy choices among our students, staff, and families, and help develop healthy behavior patterns that will lead to our living well and longer. In May, Echo Canyon School, the original home of the Chef in the Garden program, became the first Blue Zones approved school in the state of Arizona. So Sarah, can you come up and tell us a little bit about how Echo Canyon achieved this amazing distinguished?
Absolutely. Well, good evening, and thank you for the invitation to join. It's a pleasure to be here and share the excitement. I normally have speaking points, but I've learned that off the cuff and from the heart is much better. So I could not be more proud of the work that Echo Canyon School has done to achieve Blue Zone's approval status. They actually started this journey prior to us even kicking off into the community. So they were well aware that Blue Zones was coming into town, and they couldn't wait to jump on the opportunity to get started. There's a lot of different paths to approval to become Blue Zones approved, and Echo Canyon is extraordinarily special because they were already doing so many wonderful things and providing a great template and model for others to follow. But it's important to know that there are upwards of 40 different choices and options and ways to accumulate points to reach this designation. So that means not all school is going to look like Echo Canyon when they become Blue Zones approved. But with Echo Canyon, they were modeling such great opportunities of mindfulness, movement, social interaction, student leadership, and then, as many of us have experienced firsthand, their extraordinary efforts in their campus-wide garden that promotes incorporating basic food principles into their curriculum at every single grade level, at an entry point for every single student, that the takeaway becomes not only memorable, but one that will be impactful for them for healthy living and longevity. So with that, of course, with Mr. Pickle and his extraordinary servant leadership and volunteerism, which if I could replicate him and put him at every campus to keep a program like this going, I certainly would invest Blue Zones dollars to do that. But Blue Watermelon Project, and then of course the well-being team, nutrition services, the support of Dr. Menzel and the program. This is just the first of many to come, and I know the excitement continues to build across the district, and I can't wait to see many more go on their journey to becoming approved. So thank you again for being here. Thank you to the amazing work of Echo Canyon to go above and beyond, and then now be the example and the testimonial, so every other school in this district can call and say, all right, what's the scoop on this whole Blue Zones thing? So I think, again, what we're going to see now is measurable results and impact that now students that are healthier on the front end, teachers, faculty, administration that are healthier on the front end are more productive, happier, and healthier on the back end. So this really is a community-wide well-being health initiative that is intended to be preventative health care versus having something go terribly wrong that we now have to be reactive. So thank you for the time. I probably went over the minute, but really appreciate being here to be part of the celebration for something so well-deserved. Thank you.
And this amazing accreditation sounds so much easier than it actually was. So, Ms. Hughes, would you like to share a few words?
So good evening, President Hartwells, Vice President Lindsay, members of the board, Dr. Menzel, Ms. Wagner. I am so excited for us to become the first Blue Zone school, not only in Scottsdale, but also in the state of Arizona. We started this approval process back in December, and we started thanks to the hard work of our teachers and our staff when we recognized that we needed our Blue Zone team members to collect the necessary evidence of our actions and our activities aligned to the Blue Zone pledge you just heard about. I want to thank our Blue Zones team, Mr. Pickle, Ms. Rocio, Ms. Valerie, Mrs. Cordova, Mrs. Velarde, Mrs. Tully, Mrs. Lee, Ms. Chapman, and Mrs. Cadera, because through the use of our gardens, our Chef in the Garden program, our learning activities inside and outside of our classrooms, our wonderful cafe staff, and our great business partners, we were able to highlight everything we do to help our students make healthy food and drink choices, have a sense of belonging, move their bodies naturally, and tune out and de-stress.
We are fortunate to have so many activities and resources for our students to grow great habits that will help them live better longer. We will continue to grow our gardens, cook delicious food with our chef partners, and create new opportunities for our students and staff to find even more ways to make healthy choices, exercise naturally, and become more involved in school and develop those healthy coping strategies. I'm so proud of our school and everything our staff does and organizes for our students to have these rich learning experiences. So thank you for allowing us to be here this evening.
It's really extraordinary to see preschool students who are very excited to go and pick broccoli for a snack. I've never seen this in my life, and I don't think my kids, who are adult age now, will even eat broccoli. But kudos to the team, because it is pretty remarkable. This is such a wonderful achievement for the school and your community. And I have some challenge coins for all of you for your excellence. Thank you.
Congratulations to the Echo Canyon team. We know it takes a team in order to be able to receive a recognition like this. And you have set the bar, and now it's time to elevate excellence. So we're looking forward to celebrating other Blue Zones recognized and accomplished schools in Scottsdale. So thank you and congratulations. So far tonight, we've celebrated students, teachers, and a school. Now it's time to celebrate the work of an SUSD department charged with another key responsibility of the district, and that is being wise stewards of taxpayers' dollars. So this week, or maybe at the end of last week, I don't remember which, Shannon, but we were notified that Scottsdale Unified School District yet again received the Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Association of School Business Officials International. I just want to say congratulations to Shannon and the entire finance team for the outstanding work that you've done. And our last celebration this evening is the first of its kind. The backbone of any thriving organization is witnessed by the people who are its employees and deliver every day for students, as well as their internal customers, their fellow employees. I guess we can call this the, quote, Going Above and Beyond Award. And I'm going to ask a recently retired SUSD employee, Dave Hochstrasser, to come to the podium to tell us about two SUSD colleagues who have made significant contributions to his life from the time he was a student and to his time here as an employee. He is a Coronado Don, forever, I'm quite sure. Welcome, Dave.
Hi. After graduation, I had the very good fortune to go to work for a Fortune 100 company, Arizona's largest amphitheater and amusement park, Legend City and Compton Terrace, Motorola Incorporated. The Capels, Gene and Jesse Nix, my parents, and of course, some great SUSD teachers taught me to do what it takes to make things happen. Now, we're going to surprise a couple people because Laura from the HR department helped me greatly. I recently retired in May, and if anybody's ever left employment and had to go through the COBRA transition, it's interesting to say the least. But I had a couple of health procedures scheduled for June that were about to be rescheduled and so forth, but Laura went above and beyond, head and shoulders above most. You guys are lucky to have her, because if I was still over at Motorola, I'd be poaching her right about now. But she did everything to coordinate between United Healthcare, Basic COBRA, Mayo Clinic, and phone calls left and right to make things happen, and everything happened on schedule. And so I'd like to present her with one of my challenge coins. And the next one, our teachers are our rock stars. And again, I said I worked for an amphitheater. Those shows, those performances all go on as long as everything happens. Your sound guys, your lighting guys, your carpenters, your electricians, your ticket takers, the list goes on and on. If everything doesn't happen exactly the way it is, which I've never worked a perfect show, but our job is to make it so that nobody in the audience has any idea the train wreck that happened. And so that said, we made things happen. Ronnie and I have known each other more than a few years. So Ronnie and Laura, you are, I'd like to, in the words of Bob Dylan, take these coins from me because I don't need them anymore. And as a last little surprise, because of this nice lady teaching me about investing and planning for the future, for the next couple years, there's a $5,000 scholarship for Jobs for Arizona graduate students that's going to be funded through Coronado Foundation for the Future out of my funds, because again,
And thank you. Hey, don't leave yet, Dave. Don't leave. Congratulations, Laura and Ronnie. Thank you for what you've done. But we have one more surprise up our sleeve, and I'm going to invite Dennis to share it.
Mr. Hochstrasser came to us in 2003 as a bus driver. And we all know that every position, every role in the district means something to someone. And every position is important. But he became much more important to the district when he became our fire alarm technician. And he did that job tirelessly for a number of years. He's been in the fight of his life for quite some time now. And when he could, he was at work. He didn't want to retire. He wanted to keep pushing for Scottsdale schools. So it's not frequent that we honor our retirees in this way at this venue, but I wanted to take the time to say thank you to Dave for your years of service and your fortitude to stick to it with our fire alarms throughout the district.
Thank you all for that. That concludes our celebrations, and I just have a couple of other quick comments. We learned, again, the weeks are a blur because school started yesterday, so I don't know when the weekends ended and the week started, but we've learned that we are, again, a finalist for the Scottsdale Chamber of Commerce Sterling Award in the big business category. So we'll look forward to telling our story and hopefully this time bringing home the hardware. Also, we mentioned earlier that it was a good start to the school year. The students were warmly greeted, both literally and figuratively, because it's hot out, and so our people are aware that we need to exercise caution when students are outside, and we encourage our parents to make sure that they're sending their kids with water bottles. We'll make sure they're hydrated while they're at school, but we are so excited to see students back on our campuses again. And the final thing that I'd like to do is give a shout out to all of the people within our system who helped make our back to school rally last week a success. Our bus drivers who transported our staff from the various locations, the communications team who worked behind the scenes to make sure everything was put together, the volunteers, the student performers, all of them helped elevate our theme of elevating excellence, reaching new heights together, and getting us started on a positive note. So with that, I will conclude my report.
Thank you, Dr. Menzel. All right, we are going to move to public comment. In compliance with open meeting laws, the governing board may not discuss or take action tonight on any matters raised during public comment that are not on the agenda. However, the governing board members may respond to direct criticism, ask staff to review a matter, or that a matter be placed on a future agenda. Pursuant to ARS 38-431.01, parentheses I, public comment allows individuals to address the public body on any issue within the jurisdiction of the governing board. Pursuant to policy BEDH, political speech that would be construed as electioneering under applicable Arizona law is prohibited. The board president will instruct a speaker to refrain from such commentary. The board president shall end an individual's comment period if electioneering continues. Electioneering is not an issue. It is an issue outside of the governing board's jurisdiction and is therefore prohibited. As a reminder, each speaker, we have 6 this evening, will have 2 minutes. Our screen will indicate the time. Please be prepared to close your comments and relinquish the floor at the conclusion of your time. The board asks that each speaker please introduce yourself by stating your name and whether you live within our school district for clarity on the record. We thank you for your time and attendance here this evening and your cooperation following the meeting decorum and the protocols. Okay, I will read their name. If you could come to the podium, and when you start speaking, your time will start. Our first speaker this evening is Jeff Rattay.
And my name is Jeff Rattay. You 5 board members serve the community because you love the kids and can enrich their future. And the job is non-paying, a 4-year commitment. I served as a full-time substitute teacher for 13 years in Scottsdale and coached in the schools for 7 of those years, always paid. 2 years ago, during the first week of flag football practice, Cocopa Middle School principal, Mr. Olney, approached me with tears in his eyes and informed me that Dr. Menzel's office had notified him I would be a volunteer and not a paid coach. He knew that if I walked, the entire season for those 32 6th and 7th grade families would be canceled. My brother, the 8th grade coach, would be paid. I stayed on for the next 11 weeks, and we had a great season, despite the fact that Dr. Menzel had targeted a 100% service-connected disabled veteran who needed the money. I have never received a reason why this happened. I am certain this has never happened to a Scottsdale head coach before. There was a lady hanging around my practices and games. She never coached a day. I guess she was given a title. I have never in my life ever asked for something I didn't earn. For the past 2 years, your lawyer has complained that the school board refuses to let her negotiate a settlement with me. That's what lawyers do. There's another problem. Your lawyer told me there is a contract in the finance department that says 7th grade head flag football coach. It spells out the duties and responsibilities as outlined in the governing board's personnel policies and procedures manual. It is signed. I was the only coach and fulfilled all of the specified duties and responsibilities, but that's not my signature. And the $1,800 coaching stipend was given to the lady hanging around my practices and games. I am asking you, Dr. Hartwells, to allow your lawyer to negotiate a settlement with me. It is the only path forward, and it is the right thing to do. And my last piece of advice, Dr. Hartwells, you need to get out from under Sanowski's shadow because she has badly miscalculated this entire situation.
Our next speaker is Mike Bengert.
My name is Mike Bengert, and I live in the district. Leadership is the action of leading a group of people or an organization. A good leader identifies weakness in an organization, generates excitement and clarity for a shared vision of a better tomorrow. A good leader listens to his customers. For a school district, that means parents and taxpayers, to build a better product that attracts and retains students. Dr. Menzel, you have failed as a leader. Under your tenure, enrollment is down and we have record teacher and staff turnover. When you came to SUSD, your objective was to dismantle and disrupt the district. You were warned to be careful. There were students in those schools. You dismissed that warning by saying, sometimes you're going to act and screw it up. So let's learn from it and pick ourselves up and continue on the road to justice. You treat kids as collateral damage as you work to dismantle and disrupt SUSD. When you screw up and pick yourself up and continue, who is left to pick up the pieces of the damaged students? You are not capable of learning. You ignore studies and reports exposing the lies about gender-affirming care and SEL and refuse to stop injuring kids and violating parents' rights as you continue on the so-called road to justice. As a taxpayer and grandfather, I want to remind Dr. Menzel that his job is to educate our kids in academic subjects in partnership with parents. While 48% of the class of 2024 graduated lacking proficiency in math, reading, and science, Menzel has plans to spend his time in Tucson at the Resilient Schools Conference speaking to children for an organization that supports the idea that teachers should affirm and transition 5-year-old boys into girls without parental consent. I request that that the governing board investigate Dr. Menzel and any SUSD staff conference participation, specifically concerning ARS 14-1494, which states that a public entity may not use public monies for training, orientation, or therapy that presents any form of blame or judgment on the basis of race, ethnicity, or sex. Wake up, parents, you have rights. When will you start exercising those rights and say enough is enough? I suggest November 5th.
Our next speaker is Melinda Gulick.
Good evening, members of the governing board, Dr. Menzel and Mrs. Wagner. I am Melinda Gulick. I am a parent in the district. I have a son at Hopi and at Ingleside, and I do live in the district. I am a PTO volunteer at both schools. I just finished my term as the chair of SUSD's Self-Insurance Trust, and I have served since 2004, long before I had kids, on Yes to Children, the political action committee in support of the district, and I have been the co-chair of the last two campaigns that were overwhelmingly supported by the district. I am here to urge your support on item 8A to authorize the issuance of TANs for the district. You know about this situation that is a result of the Quagmire judgment, where the county assessor was found to have misclassified property valuation back to 2015. Approving TANs is a prudent financial decision. It minimizes the impact on taxpayers. It responsibly manages cash on hand. It maintains the district's bond rating, which, as the chair of the Political Action Committee, I'm very interested in, should we go out for another override, and ensures the district keeps the staff, resources, and programs that make us a district of excellence. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for a wonderful first 2 days of school, and I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Dr. Michael, who's the principal at Ingleside, who welcomed a whole new batch of sixth graders yesterday, and they had a wonderful experience. So thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Wally Graham.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Menzel. My name is Wally Graham. I am a resident of the Arcadia education community. I'm here tonight to just talk about some things that I enjoy about the Scottsdale Unified School District. And my background is a corporate guy, came out here and built a little plant for a chip company called Frito-Lay. And brought 300 good jobs. This is 1984, so I'm kind of old. But my route from Frito-Lay to here today has been an organization development consultant. And I am really into helping organizations with change and transformation. I worked with the Scottsdale Unified School District back in 2004. We developed the first strategic plan for the district. And those kinds of things are things I'm proud to tell people about. But the reason I'm here tonight is because I want to tell you that I have seen some really great things happening in our school district over the years as a resident and as a member who's been involved in board meetings and things like that. One of the things I want to talk about, and I saw Margaret Cerner today, Tavon Elementary School, I happen to be prejudiced because I'm on the site council at Tavon, old guy like me, yeah, I want to be involved in my community. But I saw Margaret tonight, and we talked about how far that school has come. This district has come a long way, an A+ school. So I want to recognize what has happened just in our education settings. Dr. Menzel has kept those things going, and I'm proud to be able to work with him because I'm also working with Dennis and with Shannon. I'm on the Bond Oversight Committee. Came in when there was a lot of chaos, but we're doing some good things. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Miss Lucinda Newberry.
Madam President, Mr. Vice President, board members, Dr. Menzel. My name is Lucy Newberry. I'm a district resident, and I have 2 children at Kokopah Middle School, a 7th grader and a 6th grader. My 7th grader is a blind student. He became blind last year. And I want to let you know the district is failing them. To start with, I just ask you to think, can you imagine what would happen if Chaparral High School senior English, AP English, didn't have a teacher on the first day? And they said you could just sit with your para, an uncredentialed person in your room, until we hire a teacher. That's what's happened for my TVI student. We've been fighting with the district for over a year now to get a permanent TVI replacement in place. And I realize you're going to deliberate tonight, but you need to know what's happened. My son hasn't had a single minute of O&M instruction, even though it's an hour in his IEP. O&M is occupational mobility, cane training. District refused to provide any, said they couldn't provide any. When we gave them the name of instructors, Roger Spivey, your director of purchasing, said he refused to open an RFP to hire someone. So the entirety of last year, my son went without receiving a single minute of O&M instruction, even though he's supposed to have 60 minutes a week. We've been given the runaround about hiring a new TVI. We promise it's going to happen, and then we get to the first day of school, my son doesn't have a teacher. And they suggested he sit in a room with a para, again, uncredentialed, no college degree. You wouldn't do this for any other student. So I just ask that you tonight vote on this TVI contract, get it approved so that your blind students and your visually impaired students actually have a teacher. They're not being treated fairly. Thank you.
Okay. And our next and last speaker is Jill Dunnigan.
Board Policy KEBR outlines a process for parents to raise concerns about staff behavior. While all recent KEB complaints have been elevated and heard by the governing board without question, tonight Mr. Buzin has created a special and confusing new process allowing the board to decide if they will hear parents' concerns. Although the parents who filed the current KEB are not satisfied with the district's response thus far, the agenda item states that the superintendent has determined that the KEB complaint is resolved. This is interesting, given that Mr. Menzel didn't take the time to meet with any of the concerned parents. Allowing the superintendent, who reports to the board, to be the investigator, judge, and jury creates a process that is seemingly poised to silence parents. Mr. Buzin's weird new process is also not fair to the employee at whom the KEB is directed. The policy states, the board shall consider all facts and provide the employee with all elements of due process in reaching a decision. How can the board have all facts without hearing directly from the employee and complainant? Also strange is a lack of details provided on tonight's action item. If the board votes to listen to the facts for themselves, will that conversation happen tonight? Are the parents and the employees present and ready to have those conversations? Finally, SUSD staff have prepared a board memo on this topic, which was completed and available on June 5th. It is now August 6th, and the district has refused multiple requests to provide a copy of that prepared public document. I respectfully ask that the board take the time to hear directly from the parents and employee involved in this matter, and that the executive session be scheduled at a future board meeting so that everyone involved may be prepared and present for the conversation. Thank you.
And that concludes public comment. Board members, is there anyone who wishes to respond? Ms. Warner.
Ms. Newberry, thank you for coming tonight. I'd like for the board to get a full report of what has transpired with her son. It's appalling, and we can do better. The other one is, Mr. Rattay, I'd like to revisit that conversation and put this to bed once and for all. And third, I know we're going to address this later in an action item, but I do believe parents need to be heard, as well as the any administrator or teacher that has had an accusation against them. Thank you.
Any other board members have a response? Ms. Sinowski.
Thank you, President. Dr. Hartwells. Yes, I would like to be added for the record volunteer roles in our district regarding compensation, claims against Dr. Menzel and his participation in conferences, and the roles that he serves representing our district, and to outline the process of KEB policy. Thank you.
Ms. Carney.
Thank you. I'd just like to piggyback on the resilience training conference, if we could get information on what that is and the details on that, I'd appreciate it.
What details? Can you be more specific, please?
The resilience training that the speaker brought up tonight, resilience training conference.
But what details are you looking for, Ms. Carney, just so that make sure the staff is
What is
responsive?
it, and what is his role in it, and did he apply for this? I don't know what
You're referring to
this is.
Dr. Menzel's attendance at the conference?
Excuse me?
You're referring to Dr.
Yes.
Menzel's conference? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for clarifying. All right, and I would like to ask if it sounded like the speaker with the student who has had difficulty getting a teacher, there might be a resolution on the agenda this evening, but I would ask Dr. Menzel as a follow-up, particularly if this agenda item does not pass, but even if it does, just to make sure that there's some diligence and a remedy there, please. Thank you. All right, we are going to move on to our consent. There are no information discussion items this evening, so we're going to move on to the consent agenda. We are going to, first, I'd like to move to approve the consent agenda as amended, and then we will address the items that were pulled individually. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Lindsay seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes 5-0. All right, we will take in turn the items that were pulled. Ms. Carney, I got your request first, and these relate to, there is an interrelated theme, as I understand it, and if I'm incorrect, I apologize, that 7H, which is item approve the purchase of multiple commodities and services using the Mojave Educational Services Arizona Cooperative Contract. Item 7I, approve the sole and/or single source procurements for 2024-25 fiscal year. And 7Q, approve the purchase of technology products, solutions, and related services using the Omnia Partners Cooperative Contracts, that there is a theme among those three as a collective, and I will turn it over to you, Ms. Carney.
Okay, thank you, President Dr. Hartwells, for this. I just noticed that all requests for funding by Dr. Menzel has now excluded the 4 amounts not to exceed languages. Since I brought to the district's attention of the overages and contracts for special ed that the board did not approve back in May. So I would like to have a discussion with my fellow board members, because I want to understand who directed that. Why would we do that? I would like to know how you feel about that, of removing that language, because I think it's vital. It's something that's we've always had. It's a best practice. I mean, I went back to agendas from 2010, and it still included that. So why are we now dropping the 4 amounts not to exceed language on contract agenda items?
Ms. Carney, I'm going to let the staff respond, but I would just to make sure that everybody is on the same page and that we are in sync with the concern. In each of the items, there is a not to exceed, there used to be a not to exceed amount with a quantity, and now that language reads estimated amount with a quantity. And that specifically is at least part of the question.
Correct.
Correct?
In these items that we have pulled, yes, that language has been exchanged. 4 amounts not to exceed have been substituted with for an estimated amount.
Okay. I am going to let Dr. Menzel address the change and the reason for and the consequences of why the change was made. If you could, please.
So thank you for the question. I would also note that it's not agendized to talk about the specifics related to some of the details, so I can address the agenda item in front of us here. And the board did receive a memo, I believe it was June 5th, from Shannon Crozier, as a response to what was identified by Board Member Carney related to those overages. We did investigate what other districts do regarding their language. We put measures in place in order to address the concerns. The district has not overspent the authorized budget, and what you see in front of you this evening reflects where prior approval had been given, but the amount is now greater than that. But we don't always know when something else is going to be required. So for special education, sometimes the IEP services require more than what was estimated or anticipated. And so I welcome a time to put it on a future agenda to have that conversation. I think that's important. But for the purposes of the agenda items in front of us this evening, the estimate is based on what we know at the moment. There could be changes down the road, and we have suggested a process by which we would notify the board if we get close to what that estimated amount is.
Ms. Carney?
Yeah, well, I'd like to hear from my fellow board members if you're okay with removing this language. That's always been best practice, and I would like to understand why, if so.
So I
Or why not?
have a question before anybody comments. Mr. Buzan, are we within scope of what's been agendized, since this was agendized for an approval, not a discussion of the contents? And maybe we are. I'm not trying to give you the answer. I would like the answer. Are we in safe territory to have that kind of a conversation?
To have an extensive discussion about this agenda item in this way is not on the agenda tonight. This request, I believe, was brought this morning by my review of email, which would be, this could have been put on the agenda, as late as yesterday at 5 p.m. or something like that. And I just will note also, Board President Hartwells, that DJE, the policy, delegates procurement and purchasing to the superintendent, and BEDBA delegates preparation of the agenda item. So this was squarely within Dr. Menzel and Ms. Crozier's purview.
Okay, so as I understand it, then we're not able to have a discussion on the terminology that's used in the item itself. It's an up or down vote of approving or not.
I believe that's true, yes.
Okay. One thing that I'd like, Dr. Menzel, if you could, and I had asked if you could address with the change, the consequences of, there has to be a cause and effect. Well, there don't have to be, but I would think there would be. If you could address that, please, is that okay?
So for example, in I believe it's the Omnia contract, I'm looking to Shannon to confirm, but if the board did not approve that, we would not be able to pay for the licenses to do the internet filtering that's required under federal law. And so that would be a practical consequence of not approving the recommendation this evening, because that's what's included in the Omnia contract. In the multiple commodities under Mojave, the copiers and maintenance, again, those are tools that are used to support classroom instruction. So we would not be able to meet obligations to be able to provide that support for our teachers. That would be the practical implication of not approving these agreements tonight. The amounts of money that you see are already built into the budget that was approved by the governing board. This is specific authorization related to these items.
And you also mentioned that there was a process to come back to the board if the estimated amount is.
In the June 5th memo, we
exceeded.
identified the safeguards that we put in place after the concern was raised by Board Member Carney. And so some of these are actually on this agenda as a result of that. And again, I welcome the conversation on a properly agendized topic to have a more robust discussion.
Okay. Ms. Carney, do you want to?
Okay, so we'll put that on a future agenda, the next agenda, to discuss if we want to remove that language or not, have more discussion around that.
I think in the future items, you can certainly make that suggestion, and I would suggest, and maybe Mr. Buzan, this, if you could weigh in on whether this would be the context to do it, as a discussion on the policy DJE.
Yes, DJE.
So that it's in the purview of the board. I mean, we don't negotiate, right? We don't write contracts for the board or for the district, but we do policy. And I think in that context, we could have a discussion along the lines that Ms. Carney's asking for. Is that accurate?
Yes, Dr. Hartwell's board president, the policy DJE, there was also a board memo on that suggesting some clarity in that policy, which the administration is hoping that the board will amend.
Would be welcomed. Okay.
Okay, I have a last question, well, on this topic. When did we start removing that language from the agenda items?
Board Member Carney, the agenda items had been a little bit confusing in the wording in that they use both estimated and not to exceed in the prior board agendas. Once we identified that there was an issue on how we were doing some things, we went back and looked at what are other districts doing and how are they sending that information. Noticed that a lot of them were saying estimated, and so that's when we said, okay, let's look at this and change that language.
Okay, well, I believe that we need to go back to our best practice that we've been doing for as long as I could find, and that's to have the four amounts not to exceed on our agenda items.
Okay, and you're welcome to add that to a future agenda item. Did you have another item with respect to those three?
Yes, you want me to start with 7H?
Please.
Okay. My question also on 7H is that we already approved $300,000 under the same contract on May 14th for Pacific Office Automation. So I'd like to know, what is this new amount for? You're asking for another $275,000.
Ms. Crozier.
Yes, Board Member Carney. So we had originally done that for $300,000. That had been in the past just for the maintenance of the copiers. Through the capital process that we've been doing, where we ask people what are the things that they would like or that they need within capital, we discussed having a refresh of copier machines, and so that 300 didn't include what would be needed to do the copier refresh. We recognized that we had only done approval for 300,000, and if we wanted to do both of those items, then it would be necessary to ask for additional 275. So this is so that we would have the authorization to go ahead with the maintenance as well as copier refresh.
Okay, so we're asking for $575,000 for copier refresh?
Copier refresh and copier maintenance.
So just to clarify, so I understand, Ms. Crozier, the reason it's before us is because of the procedural change and improvement that was made, so that you're asking, the original approval, now the scope of work has changed and we've exceeded the previously approved amount, and now you're back asking for an increase to accommodate the change in scope?
Yes, Dr. Hartwells, that is correct. We have not approved anything beyond the 300, but because we are recognizing that the scope has changed, the budget included more than what we had originally thought, or that, when they brought this forward, that now we're bringing it forward to increase it so that we're following through with the process changes.
Okay, so that, Ms. Carney, is a change in
Okay.
action.
My concern is, why are we not listing that information on the agenda item so that we understand that, so I don't have to even do this?
Yeah, we're not agendized to talk about how to make an agenda. So I think that's something that can be, we're agendized to approve or not approve. If you want to have a discussion as a future item.
It says it in the background.
It says it in the background.
The background says the governing board previously approved $300,000 for copier maintenance and service for the year. This additional amount is to cover a copier refresh that will take place during the fiscal year 24-25. So that is the explanation for the additional requested expenditure authorization.
Okay, I think there just needs to be better communication, since this is a new process that we haven't had and we don't really have a full understanding of it. I think we need a full understanding of the new process so that we understand how to better read our agenda items, since it's new and we've never
Okay, fair enough.
talked about this.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote on 7H, and then we'll move to the others. Ms. Sanowski, though, had her light on. Did you have a
Thank
comment
you.
on 7H?
Yes, I just wanted to comment, for the record, it's in our background information that is in our public agenda, and it does state, as Dr. Menzel said, that it's a copier refresh. So it is important for all of us as we prepare for our meetings to read the agenda and the information, including the background information.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move to approve item 7H, approve the purchase of multiple commodities and services using the Mojave Educational Services Arizona Cooperative Contract. Is there a
I
second?
second that motion.
Ms. Sanowski seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
No.
Any abstentions? Ms. Warner, did you vote? Aye? Okay, thank you. That vote, that motion passes 4-1. All right, Ms. Carney, back to you for 7I.
Okay, back to 7I. Let me find that on here. I just also wanted to point out that the language was removed on this agenda item, and I just had a question on time clocks plus. We had approved on May 14th, as well as the frontline technologies under cooperative agreements. So I'm just wanting if we could just give a quick explanation of why these are now on this agenda item as well.
Ms. Crozier?
My understanding is that these were sole source items that purchasing uses. They're items that I believe, have brought as sole source in the past. Time Clock Plus is the system that we use for our time and tracking our time with that. Frontline has a couple of different uses that we have, but that was coming forth as a sole source because they weren't on cooperatives, and because their software that we've had in place, changing them out would be more costly than continuing to renew them for the regular agreements.
Okay, so the amounts listed are in addition to what we approved on May 14th, or that's what we?
I apologize. I thought they were sole source, and that's why they were on this agenda. So without knowing,
Okay, then.
I guess I did not realize that purchasing had put that on there as a cooperative, but they were bringing these forth as sole source.
Okay, we need to maybe look into this, and I don't know if we need to table this item, but we had approved this on May 14th.
Under which cooperative?
Under, we're talking about the time clocks. Under, I've got so many papers here. This is the May 14th, okay.
I believe those are different companies. It's under TIPS. You have
It's under TIPS.
Time Clocks Plus, that's technology, equipment, and supplies, which is different than what's included in this agenda item.
This is, I'm sorry, the maintenance for it.
Yeah, so it's a separate procurement. So under TIPS, the technology, equipment, and supplies were procured. This is a separate agreement.
This would be for the management. I can tell you, I personally looked at how much we spent on each one of these last year, and the amounts would be inclusive of all. So the amounts for integrated register, time clock, and frontline I looked at the exact amount spent for each one of these in total, not by if it was from a different contract. And these amounts cover what we have done in the past for all maintenance and whatnot. There's no additional software that I know we're buying for integrated register systems. Time Clock Plus, again, this is the management that they do with it, and then the software for Frontline. And we actually reduced what we're doing with Frontline Technologies because that included a financial software that we were using and we're no longer procuring. But I can tell you that I personally looked up each one of these to see how much we spent last year to make sure that this was going to be a sufficient amount. And this was of total of what we spent, and then added a little bit more in case there is inflation or whatnot within it.
Okay, and the same thing is true for Frontline Technologies, you're saying?
Yeah, actually, I would use Frontline from what we did last year because I knew we weren't going to continue using Forecast 5. So we actually reduced it from what we've done in the past.
Okay, so we approved 90,000 on May 14th, and then added with the 65,000 tonight is what we spent.
We will not. We have spent more with Frontline in the past because it included some HR software, but also a financial forecasting product that we were using in finance. We decided not to continue using that finance software, and so the amount actually is less than what we've been spending because we're not continuing with one of the softwares that was about $24,000.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So just to clarify, this is not redundant. with the May.
No, the
Thank you.
frontline acquisition that was approved on May 14th was specifically for Human Resource Information System. That is not what is being approved this evening. It's a different recommendation. Same company, different authorization, and it was not available under the cooperative, which is why it's being recommended under sole source. And we are always happy to answer any of these questions before the governing board meeting as well.
Thank you. I see no other lights on, so I'm going to move to approve item 7I, approve the sole and/or single source procurements for 2024-2025 fiscal year. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Sanowski seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say nay.
No.
That motion passes 4-1. And we will go to item 7Q. Ms. Carney.
Once again, 7Q is the Omnia inside public sector that, where we exchange the typical for amounts not to exceed with for an estimated amount, so that you would ask me to pull off all contracts where that had been done, and that had been done on that as well.
Okay. And I think we have a potential next steps for addressing that. Any other comments or questions by board members? No? All right. In that case, I move to approve the purchase of technology products, solutions, and related services using the Omnia Partners Cooperative Contracts. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Sanowski seconds. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay.
No.
All right, that motion passes 4-1. All right, we had one other item out of consent pulled, a partial, in part, personnel action item 7T with respect to the proposed new administrative hire. And Ms. Warner.
Thank you, Dr. Hartwells. So this is a admin on assignment. I'm going to call it AOA for short. And it is somebody coming back to us on contract with a daily rate of $678 from a position that was a very hefty position, moving into doing some transition work. And so where my challenge with this is that there is not a classified or certified personnel that would receive this kind of payment for transition work. And so I'm just not supportive of that amount and for the amount of work. And so I don't know if you have anything to say about that, Dr. Menzel, but this is pretty egregious in comparison to what we pay our other staff.
So I have shared with the governing board previously that the scope of work for Dr. Benson to complete, one is to finish the work that she started facilitating the sex ed committee. The first presentation on that is August 20th, and then we expect to be able to complete the process in October. She is the person who has shepherded that from the beginning to the end. I don't believe it's appropriate to not pay someone comparable to what they were making previously in order to be able to complete that work. The second scope of work relates to the coordination of our strategic action teams. So not leading them, but coordinating the work of the 5 strategic action teams as we focus our efforts to elevate excellence in Scottsdale Unified School District. The reason why I recommended a number of days for that support is we have a new Assistant Superintendent of Education Services who is extremely talented, but is also learning our district, needs to spend time building the relationships and understanding of the departments and the leaders that she's responsible for, and that would include the special education department, that would include teaching and learning, that would include gifted services. There are so many things that it takes time for someone to come up to speed on, and so the belief in talking with our leadership team was that to have Dr. Benson facilitate the quarterly conversation around the work of the strategic action teams would be beneficial in this year of transition, and thus the recommendation for that administrator on assignment agreement.
So I've heard raving reviews about you, Ms. Mitchell, and I'm very excited to see what you bring. And I'd actually like to separate this and to approve the AOA for the continuing of the Sex Ed Advisory Committee. However, move the stat plan and have Ms. Mitchell working on the KPIs. I think a fresh perspective, and she brings, from what I hear, excellence to our district. And so I based upon what happened with our KPIs this last year, there's many that we did not meet, and it's a time for a set of fresh eyes.
Are you making a motion, Ms. Warner?
Yeah, I will. So I'll motion to split this proposal that Dr. Menzel sent to us, approving Dr. Benson to move forward with her HUD Sex Ed Advisory Committee and course study through July, and that is it. And then the rest of it would be on a different motion.
So you're proposing to amend the scope of work under the AOA?
AOA.
Vote on both separately. So
All right.
just separate the recommendation and vote on each one separately.
A proposal has been made to separate and take them in two parts. A first part, Ms. Warner's proposal, which has not been seconded, but let me just clarify it as I understand it, and then we can ask for a second. Ms. Warner has motioned to approve the admin on assignment for Dr. Benson with respect to a scope of work limited to continuing and finalizing the sex education curriculum work, advisory committee work, but excluding the rest of the work that's listed in the proposal.
So I don't think we should confuse the two motions. So by excluding it, it means you're not taking a second vote. So you're voting on the sex ed scope of work, and then if there's a motion in second for the second body, it can be considered. If there's not a motion in the second, then it dies because it wasn't included.
How would you like the wording so that you are comfortable?
I think you vote on the admin on assignment for the sex ed committee work, yes or no. Then vote on the stat team support, yes or no. It just separates the two as Ms.
Correct.
Warner has suggested.
Yes.
So Ms. Warner, are you comfortable with that
Yes.
approach? Okay, so for your action, it is admin on assignment to complete the sex education committee work.
Yes.
Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second that motion.
There is a motion and a second. All those in favor for Ms. Warner's proposal, please say aye. Oh, wait, Ms. Sinowski, I'm sorry. Ms. Sinowski, I missed your microphone. Apologies.
For the record, we are voting to include Dr. Benson and allow her to finish and complete the sex ed advisory work. Is that correct?
Correct.
On this one?
On
Thank
this
you.
motion, yes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes 5-0. I'd like to make a motion to approve the admin on assignment for Dr. Benson for the stat work, which was the remainder of the scope of work. Is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Ms. Sinowski seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please say nay.
No.
That motion passes 3-2. All right. We are now moving into our action items, all but one of which have been before the board a few times now. We will start with action item 8A, adoption and resolution authorizing issuance and sale of tax anticipation notes, otherwise referred to as TANs. I think Ms. Crozier does not have a presentation formally, as the one has been given in the previous board meeting. But are there any comments or questions, or Ms. Crozier or Dr. Menzel? have
And we
any?
do actually have other guests in the room and one in the cloud to answer questions if there are some.
This proposal is somewhat modified from what was before the board in June. The tax anticipation notes that are being put forward to the board for authorization of issuance and sale is a not to exceed 10 million, as opposed to before that number was different. If there are no comments or questions, then, I'm sorry, Ms. Warner, yes.
So at the last meeting, I had requested different options to be put in front of the board, and I am very glad to see that we were able to find common ground and forge consensus by putting a pause on the TANs at our last meeting. And as a result, we were able to protect our teachers, respect our taxpayers, and most of all, put our students first. Reducing the TANs from 25 million to 10 million is significant, and our costs from approximately 200,000 down to 45,000 as we were shared in an email yesterday from Ms. Crozier. The common theme is that we needed more taxes to get what we needed. And I think what is presented today shows us that we have plenty of resources and we can work together for the betterment of our district. And thank you for doing the work.
Any other comments, board members? I'd like to thank the advisors and legal counsel and the staff who've worked tirelessly to find solutions, and this is the same solution, just a different cap. So thank you. And I would also like to direct the community's attention to the SUSD source, which has a very nice illustration of what the situation is that we are trying to fix, that the county erred on, and clarify this is not a spending issue, nor was it any kind of situation that the district itself created. We're all kind of in this one together, and so this was an unfortunate situation that the district is helping solve for the county. With that, I move to approve the adoption of resolution authorizing issuance and sale of tax anticipation notes as proposed. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Ms. Sanowski seconds. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. That motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. We are moving on to approve the purchase of multiple commodities and services using the Omnia Partners Cooperative Contracts. And this is a different, it's the same wording of the action item that we tackled out of the consent agenda, but for K-12 Insight LLC. This has also been before the board before. Any lingering questions or comments? Dr. Menzel, anything? No? All right. Ms. Carney, your light is on. Do you have a?
Yeah, did you want to go first? Did
No.
you say Dr. Mendel?
He said no, he has nothing to add.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Hartwells. So once again, this agenda item is missing the not to exceed standard language, which was excluded from this agenda item that was on it previously when this item was brought to us. But I did want to talk about, this agenda item was voted down by the board on June 11th, but I want to just say that I am glad that actually that it's back and that I had done a public records request for the dialogues for Let's Talk, because in it I saw many things from employees, and one of them says, I sincerely hope that the K-12 Insights receives approval. Let's Talk is a valuable tool for us, your staff, especially in light of the current climate where many of us feel apprehensive about speaking out. It's become increasingly evident that dissent with the current administration may result in severe consequences. And so with all that I read in there, I just was thankful that, that this tool is something that the employees feel is beneficial to them, and I was glad to know that.
Ms. Sanowski.
Thank you, President Dr. Hartwells. Ms. Carney, can I ask if you read anything that was from a positive nature of the use of this tool shared by employees or parents in our community?
Did I read anything positive? I mean, there's 50 pages of the PRR. Maybe that can be shared with the entire board. Probably would be good so you all can read it.
My point is the brush you continue to paint is bad, and I don't think that serves us as governance for this district that we're expected to serve. So I would appreciate, instead of putting your personal bias into conversation, that you stay focused to the work and tasks that we are asked to do as board members.
I would like to respond to that. I absolutely am sticking to that, and I'm saying that I'm changing my vote actually this time based on what I read in there, and I think that's a positive thing. And that's the way that I was taking it. There's plenty of things that you can read in there, and I didn't go through it all. I just am telling you that because of the information I received, it did help change my vote, and therefore I'm able to make a better informed decision this meeting.
Very good. With that, thank you. I move to approve the purchase of multiple commodities and services using the Omnia Partners Cooperative Contracts, action item 8B. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes 5-0. Moving on to 8C, to approve the purchase of supplemental educational resources using the Strategic Alliance of Volume Expenditures, or SAVE, contracts. also been before the board previously. Any comments or questions? Ms. Sanowski, your light is on. Oh, that was an error. Ms. Warner, your light is on.
Yes. So we're back to Capstone with Publico, and I was under the impression that the superintendent was going to disable some of the slides. So this was Publico is something that we worked on for close to 2 years because of the age inappropriate slides within the system itself. The education piece of it is fine, but it's just the different slides. I met with Dr. Menzel personally. We had a one-on-one. He actually agreed some of the slides were not age appropriate. I met with Dr. Benson. She also agreed there are many slides that are just not age appropriate. It went before the committee that I served on. And when Ms. Dodds was working with the parent on which slides to disable, a community member shouted them down, and it pretty much shut the meeting down. And it was voted, kind of bullied into a vote to say that it was all appropriate. But the bottom line is there are just slides in there that are not age appropriate. And so here we go again. We're in the same boat. We worked on this for 2 years, and I want to know where we stand with the age inappropriate slides.
Dr. Menzel, could you address the process that would be used for lodging a concern by a parent in particular?
So the process that Board Member Werner referred to was the supplemental curriculum review process. So any parent in our district can raise a question, and it can be reviewed by a committee. Dr. Dodds Karen can speak to some of the specifics related to this. I think there are two things that are important to note, and we did send to the governing board. Usage of this tool primarily is for animals and biography. We have lesser usage in some of the other content areas. And I'll let Dr. Karen talk about her conversation with the vendor about what you can and can't turn off. The other component that I think is relevant for the board to consider whether or not you approve this proposal is that under prior approvals, we were able to procure ebooks. And if we don't renew the contract, we don't have access to those ebooks. And so there's a loss of an asset for our students as a result of that. But I'll let Dr. Karen talk about her conversation with the vendor because that happened this past week.
Good evening, governing board members, President Warner, former Vice President Warner, Board Member Warner, mercy. I have had an opportunity to speak with our rep from Capstone to talk about the process for deactivation, so we can deactivate, as we've done with other digital programs. Serving on the Supplemental Material Review Committee, which is a process we follow when anybody submits to us via our website that they have a concern, be it for any instructional material. We either take it directly back to the campus, and we might have a conversation with the teacher and the community member who's concerned, or we bring it to the Supplemental Material Review Committee. The Supplemental Material Review Committee did review 2 topics 2 years ago, and ultimately the consensus of the group was that they were appropriate. While not all of the group agreed at the time, there was a final consensus. We do have the opportunity, if the governing board would like, or under the direction of Dr. Menzel, we can deactivate, and we can do that at a district level. We don't have to go through Capstone in order to do that. We have that ability. We have tried to honor the process, but we can certainly revisit any processes we utilize. In speaking with our rep, we did learn 35 million articles have been read in Capstone. It is intended for K-3. One of the features that our teachers enjoy about the resource is that there are snippets for kids to read. So when they are doing a biography report or they're doing an animal report, the teacher can ask the student to go on and study the hippopotamus or whatever they're researching, and then they can get information. It's visually appealing and appropriate for a reader who's in kindergarten through 3rd grade. So we do find it is valuable. Our teachers, when I look at the usage, it varies across our schools. Animals, 62,000 articles were read by SUSD students. In science, 10,000 articles were read in biographies. We had 23,000 articles read. The good news is we have a lot of kids reading, so we like that. But when we look at our schools, they range from Tavon, Laguna, Yavapai, Anasazi, Cherokee, so they're all over. It's used throughout our district. We do find it to be a valuable tool, but we'll certainly take some direction from the board and Dr. Menzel as well.
Thank you, Dr. Dodds-Karen. Can I ask just a clarifying question? If this is the same content where there was a slide that was objected to, it was a student receiving an asthma shot?
No, that's separate. That was
Okay.
the CKLA curriculum.
Okay, so that's different than, okay, thank you. Ms. Warner, do you have other questions for Dr.
I'll just
Dodds-Karen?
make one final comment. You know, SUSD is a school of excellence, and we should be providing our students and families with excellence. And if there are certain slides or lessons within that program that is effective and that is used, why not just focus on that and turn the others off? This is a software that the kids can get on their computers 24/7, 7 days a week. They can explore around, and there are a lot. It's going to strike conversations that parents would like to have with their kids before they see it on a computer. So I'm a little baffled that we can't just do the best practices and shut off what isn't used. So if it's just the animals and so on, then let's turn the rest off and use what is what the teachers want, that they're saying that they're using.
Board Member Warner, I can also add a little bit about what they aren't using. So while we do know what our usage is, in speaking with our rep, we wanted to know if we know that, say, 62,000 articles have been tapped within animals, we don't know which ones weren't tapped. So maybe there weren't any articles read on crocodiles, but we don't know if there weren't any on a crocodile, let's say, or a polar bear. So that is something that we aren't able to do. We aren't able to disaggregate it as to what was clicked and what wasn't clicked. So we can't deactivate what we don't know hasn't been read, if that makes sense.
I think you know which ones need to be deactivated. So we worked on this together.
I think this is very serious. I don't think this is funny at all. With respect, this is pretty serious when we're talking about censoring content, but one or two parents making decisions as a parent for everybody. This is pretty serious. So, Ms. Stanowski, you had your light on. Did I missee that?
I did, and at first I was thinking it wasn't worth even bringing into the room because what's appropriate and viewed as age appropriate by a governing board member may not be viewed as appropriate by a curriculum instruction specialist that understands age and growth and intellectual development. I also think that when we talk about parental rights and conversations parents can have with their kids and decisions they can have, we don't have a one-size-fits-all, and that's why we are a district public school. And what I view as appropriate as a parent may not be what you view as appropriate, and that's okay. We have options, educational options for people that want something different than what we offer. So I am very concerned about censorship and the issues that continue to be thrown at us and the swaying from our lanes in governance.
Can parents opt out of using Capstone as a supplemental curriculum?
Thank you for the question, Dr. Menzel. Yes, any family can always request that their child have an alternative resource. So if it is, again, let's say we're doing an animal report, and I don't want my child to be utilizing the Capstone product of Pebble Go, the teacher can be told by the family, I would prefer my student utilize an encyclopedia, books checked out from the library, in order to gain information to complete their assignment. But an alternative resource is always available for students.
Thank you, Dr. Dodds-Karen. Ms. Carney?
Thank you, Dr. Hartwells. I have a few concerns. I just want to, on record, that once again, this contract, the not-to-exceed standard language was excluded from the last time when we voted on it. That has been changed. I do want to note that a few things. This was voted down by the board on May 14th. And I'm concerned because June 11th, the board approved the supplemental materials list without Pebble Go. So we did approve that without that. Also, on July 18th, you sent out an email to all staff to give updates on district-approved curriculum stating Capstone was not approved, which includes elementary ebooks and Pebble Go and not to use them. So the link, it's already been put out there to everyone that Capstone Pebble Go has not been approved and to not use it, and now for it to come back again. I'd like to know who keeps bringing this back. Why is this back again?
So I'll be happy to answer that question. When we had the meeting in May, there were 4 board members present, and there were 2 votes in favor and 2 votes against. We have a 5-member board. The state of Arizona contemplates odd number of board members in order to address that issue of when you have tied votes. So to say it voted down, it did not pass because it tied. And so we brought it back because the law permits bringing back an item that wasn't voted down. And so it's in front of the board tonight with 5 members to be able to take action on it. Whether you vote for it or against it, it will be the full complement of the governing board elected to represent the voters of Scottsdale.
And so can I ask, what do we do about the supplemental materials list then? Does that continually come back to us every time something is approved? I thought we approved that one time for the upcoming school year.
Board Member Carney, we did, at the June 11th board meeting, bring forward the supplemental materials. The communication I provided to our administrators in that employee newsletter was so that everybody knew coming back into school what the board had approved as our supplementals. If the governing board approves Capstone, then we would add PubleGo back onto the supplemental materials list. We would also reactivate the ebooks in our library system so that those books could be accessed for our primary grade readers. And we would amend the approved supplemental materials list with this governing board approval.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Dodds. Karen, okay, I think we've had enough discussion on this. Let's move on. I've moved to approve the purchase of the supplemental educational resources using the Strategic Alliance of Volume Expenditures contracts. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Sanowski seconds. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say nay.
No.
That motion passes 3-2. All right, we're going to move on to the second read and approval, action item 8D, the governing board policy CBI regarding evaluation of superintendent. There has been what appears to be a modification relative to previous board meetings. I don't know if Mr. Buzan, you were planning to speak to that proposed amendment that is new this evening? Or perhaps the person requesting that amendment could speak to it? Thank you.
Thank you, Board President Hart-Wells, members of the governing board. The background articulates pretty clearly the requests. One was made by Board Member Carney, and one was made at another time by Board Member Werner. The language, if a tool is used to evaluate the superintendent, each board member shall be provided the feedback results given to them at a board meeting before the scheduled evaluation, and then either via email or a hard copy was included by those 2 board members. And then the additional change we spoke about at a previous meeting, which was to change the requirement that the meeting be scheduled no later than June 30th as opposed to May 31st. This would actually catch up with what the school's practice is now. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Okay, thank you. And I was actually referring to that last sentence. There was, in the black line, if a taxpayer-funded tool is used to evaluate the superintendent, then each board member shall be provided the feedback results given to them at a board meeting before the scheduled evaluation. And then taxpayer-funded is now deleted, as proposed to be deleted. So it assumes, so we have 2 proposals here, nested in one. I just want to clarify what we're asked to approve.
Thank you for that clarification. I talked to Board Member Carney about removing taxpayer-funded. I asked her with whether we could define what taxpayer-funded meant in this, because it was confusing to me, because all the tools we use are taxpayer-funded. I'm here tonight by taxpayer funds, thankfully. And so she agreed that it was confusing, so we would take that taxpayer-funded language out. The additional change was this via email or hard copy was a request by Board Member Werner. So what we have on the screen here is the language that you're being asked to adopt.
You referred to email. Where is this reference to email? Oh. Oh, just the delivery mechanism itself? Oh, okay. Okay, all right. Thank you for clarifying that. Are there comments or questions? Ms. Sanowski?
I actually really appreciate that we are extending this timeline to June 30th, because then I assume that the information we need to have a very comprehensive evaluation, because some of the metrics that we use do include data that, so if you weren't on the governing board during the entire school year, there's information that you could miss. Therefore, I feel like we would be able to receive information that could catch up new governing board members on the performance. So I appreciate that it's including to the end of the school year and not, or the end of the fiscal year and not just the end of the school year.
Board members, any other comments or questions? All right. With that, I move to approve the second read and approval governing board policy CBI regarding evaluation of superintendent. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Sanowski seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. That motion passes 5-0. We're going to move on to action item 8E, second read and approval governing board policy DIE regarding audits and financial monitoring. Mr. Buzan?
Since we did bring this previously, I'll just go over the changes briefly. There was a cleanup change to policy. Our current policy refers to BDF, which is no longer in policy. So this cleans it up and refers to the correct iteration of policy, BDE. And then there is an additional change that I recognized in statute was not in here. It was a statute passed, I think, 2 years ago, requiring a roll call vote anytime the governing board accepts audits or compliance questionnaires. So those are the two changes, and I think a vote is in order.
Great. Thank you for catching that inconsistency and bringing that into alignment. Any discussion? All right, very good. I move to approve the second read and approval, the governing board policy DIE regarding our audits and financial monitoring. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Sanowski seconds. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. That motion passes 5-0. All right, moving on to the action item 8F, second read and approval, governing board policy IGA regarding curriculum development. Mr. Buzan.
Thank you, Board President Hart-Wells. This one's come back again for another vote. There is one change to this, which would be to add that recommendations for new curriculum adoption shall ensure alignment with Arizona state standards. We're already required by law to ensure state standards. And so having in policy something that's compliance-based and is a best practice, that's really, the use of the term best practice would be to be in compliance with state law. So that's the recommendation to add that to IGA. And I know Dr. Dodds-Karen is here to answer any additional questions.
Ms. Sanowski.
How does this impact any curriculum adoption done previously that may not have lived up to the expectation and alignment of state standards?
This would not change current adoption. This would be applied from the point in time the governing board approves it.
Thank you.
I would like to make sure that the implementing regulation is very clear that the board should never be asked to adopt a curriculum that's not state aligned when there is state aligned curriculum available. Ms. Carney.
Could I just ask a question about how if we do change this policy, how does it affect like the sex ed curriculum? As far as there's no Arizona state standards for that. So how does that affect?
Well, I think it's a little bit of a misstatement to say there are no state standards. There is substantial code. I believe you're on the committee, which I went over at several meetings. And so if I'm asking real time to apply IGA to the human growth and development curriculum, I would say that the state standards in that case would be the regulations that we discussed at that committee meeting.
Okay, I just don't want to find ourselves getting in the weeds or getting in trouble with curriculum we want to bring in that isn't aligned by putting this in there. So, I mean, statute is different than state standards. So it's just a question, is that going to affect?
In this situation, I would think that, well, I wouldn't think, I would argue that Arizona state standards, yes, they're different, they come from a different source, but in this case, the state of Arizona has determined to require these curricular rules, and they just place it in a different place. They're still required to be followed by school districts.
Can I go a little bit further? So the state of Arizona hasn't adopted standards for every potential course of study that the district could adopt. And so in the areas where the state hasn't adopted standards, then the board would have discretion with respect to the curriculum that was adopted for something where there wasn't a state standard associated with it. So I believe that there's statutory language related to sex ed, so I think that's a different conversation. But there could be a course that's a la carte, there's no standard for it, and the board would have discretion then with respect to the process that we use to adopt the curriculum. This wouldn't prohibit that.
Might I suggest, and I think I had suggested this previously, to deal with any possible edge cases, is to add the phrase "where applicable" after the word standards. That would address.
If you make a motion, that way it works.
I would like people to comment on that. So, yeah. Okay. Ms. Warner.
So with Cheyenne going through the curriculum committee, and the parents and most teachers overwhelmingly chose Saxon math. And while they have not changed, so they had to bring in something else. So my point here is, are we now really like strongholding on a school or where they brought in a piece to make it fall into alignment? So if this is our policy, would Saxon be able to come in when they bring in the other piece that made it fall into alignment with state standards? So I never want to take that option away from a campus or from, any parents or teachers.
I just would like to point out we are not agendized to talk about a previously decided matter. It is decided, it was voted on, and it moved on. I appreciate that the concern is, does the governing board wish to endorse curriculum being adopted that is not aligned with state standards, where there are state standards, if one or two parents wishes it to be so? And again, my strong position is no. And I will not support any carve-out that allows or even invites a curriculum to be adopted that is not aligned with an academic state standard. Not sure how you could even assert that you have an interest in academic excellence and take the position that that should be allowed.
So
the where applicable language would address the cases that Ms. Carney raised where there are no state standards. That would address it and not block those solutions moving forward. Yeah. Ms. Sanowski.
I'd like to make a motion to add the term "where applicable" after Arizona state standards.
And approve.
And then approve this second read of policy KJA, or IGA, sorry, regarding curriculum development.
So there's a motion to approve the second read and approval of the governing board policy IGA regarding curriculum development with the amendment of adding a comma where applicable after the word standards in the line that has been proposed as being added. Correct?
Yes, thank you, correct.
Great. There's a motion on the floor. I will second. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay.
No.
That motion passes 3-2. Item 8G was tabled, so we're going to move on to item 8H, decision whether to conduct a hearing regarding a May 2024 KEB complaint. This is a ministerial action by the board only. We are not agendized to actually talk about the substance of the KEB complaint. So, any questions for Mr. Buzan? I see none. All right, I move, let's see here. I guess we have to decide. There's no, the language doesn't tee up an answer.
President Dr. Hurwells, I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Sinowski, I apologize.
And I know that the board received information on if this, then that type in referencing to the KEB complaint. But can we have clarification on specifically the results of an action to, if we approve this, what happens then? Please, thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I'd like to speak just very briefly on KEB. It is a policy that this district has that enables any parent or community member to raise concerns with an employee directly. And that kind of cuts both ways. It, one, gives that person the ability to speak to their concern with the person they're concerned with or their supervisor. But it also cuts in against the employee and puts the employee in the position of having to defend themselves from those complaints. And it also has a very lengthy appeal process. And so a yes vote in this case would be to, or I would ask for a motion to affirm the administration's ruling in this case, which is that the KEB has been resolved. And a no vote on that motion would mean that the board could then have a hearing on the issue. And because it is against an employee, we would have to agendize that at a later meeting, and we would give that employee the right to have that in executive session.
So may I?
Yeah, Ms. Warner, yes.
Thank you. So I actually have two comments on that. So I do not have the information. I know you sent me to Board Docs for the information. I cannot find it anywhere in here. I'd asked for you to email it to me twice. You did not. The second thing is I believe that the way that this was worded and the way that the parent was told, and I believe any parent that has a complaint and wants to come before the board should be able to do that as the same with a staff member. And so I would actually motion to approve having a hearing and have, like we have done with every other KEB that has come before us, since I've been on the board. So I'd like to motion to approve having a hearing for this particular parent.
So are there other comments? And I'm going to ask Ms. Warner to phrase her motion, because I think I heard a motion for just a second. Let's allow others. The wording in the action item does not tee up as an approval or a non-approval. So we have to word the motion properly so that our yes vote is a clear outcome and the no vote is a clear outcome. But I would like to give everyone else an opportunity to comment if they wish. Ms. Carney, your light's on.
Thank you, Dr. Hurwells. It says that the superintendent determined that the KEB complaint is resolved, but in what we received and what public comment said, did you meet with the parent, Dr. Menzel?
The policy permits me to assign someone to be able to hold that hearing for me, and I had the associate superintendent conduct that meeting and complete the investigation, which was the appeal process.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, I appreciate that question because I had that question too to clarify. So it is possible that the matter could be referred to the superintendent since at the time that step was referred to a designee.
I believe Dr. Menzel has already made the decision that Dr. Benson was the designee there, and the next step would be for the board to hear the KEB.
Okay. All right. All right. In that case, if there's no other comments, Ms. Warner, can you craft your motion in a way that a yes vote is a certain outcome and a no vote is a certain outcome. Oh, wait, Ms. Sanowski, are you?
I thought our council did that already,
No.
saying that a yes vote would affirm administrative ruling, KEB has been resolved. Those were his
No.
words.
Yes, but that would be if the motion is to affirm the administration's ruling. No one's made that motion.
There is a motion on the table, and I made it clear I have not received any of the information with the investigation, and I've requested it twice.
You did
So-
say that for the record.
Yes.
Are you having an issue with board docs? You didn't state
We're
that you
not
had an issue with
agendized for
board
my
docs.
board docs, but I'm happy for you to look at it.
You brought that
So-
issue up, board member.
We're not agendized
Warner.
for it. So I did
Excuse
make a
me.
motion. I
If
made
you
a
didn't
motion.
receive the documents, that is an issue for this board. Everyone should receive the
Okay,
documents.
I do not have the documents.
And so you don't have access to board docs, so we're going to have to figure that out. And the board should have access to all that information. She's stating here that she doesn't have access to that, so I think that is an issue for the board.
Yes, that is an issue. Okay, if there are folks that did not have access to information to inform their vote for technical reasons or otherwise, it seems prudent to not make a vote on something if someone's not prepared to do so.
Every other KEB we have heard, and I did make a motion for us to hear the KEB in executive session as we normally do. So my motion today, right now, is to move forward and hear the parent and the staff member in an executive session.
Okay, so you also stated you did not have access to information, correct? I mean, I realize it's related.
There's a motion on the table.
Can you answer the question? Because you alleged that you didn't get information.
Yeah, there's two
So
emails. Anybody can do a public records request for it. I made 2 emails, and I do not have what you sent me.
And I'll second the motion that Ms. Warner put on the table.
Are you seconding the motion that's on the table, Ms.
Yeah,
Carney?
yes.
Okay. So there is a motion and seconded to hear. The motion is not what Mr. Buzan suggested it to be. The motion is to conduct a hearing regarding a May 2024 KEB complaint. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Yeah, and I would like to say that's a better way we can all see the information, because I'm not sure what they're even talking about. What information they're talking about that we didn't get. I'm not sure what they're discussing, so I think it's appropriate to have an executive session so we all have the information in front of us.
Board Member Carney, are you also stating that you didn't have an opportunity to see the executive content in board docs?
No, I don't know what you're referring to. I'm just saying.
You were not able to see board docs? That's an issue if we have 2 board members who are not able to access.
I did not say that at
the
all. I don't know what
information.
you're referring to is what I'm saying. So that's why I'm saying, yes, let's move forward as we've done with the other KEBs, and I second that motion.
Okay, so really your decision is you want to move forward with the KEB because you've been involved in moving forward with the KEB in the past. It's not because you were able to act or not able to access information, because this is critical. If you cannot get access to the information that you need to inform your votes, then we need to know that. So if that's what
did not say
if
that.
the assertion is, or if the assertion is, you didn't send it to me, person, that's different. And that's completely different than this action item. Okay, and I realize there's a motion on the table, we're going to vote on it.
Yeah, no,
But
I'll
we got to
clarify.
resolve this. If you're alleging you two don't have access to critical documents, that is an issue. That's a serious issue.
Can I say I'm not
Irrespective-
alleging that? I don't even know what they're talking about. I felt I had the information.
Okay, okay.
Moving in.
Okay,
So
that's helpful. Thank you.
So my motion was to move forward to hear the parents, like we have in the
Yes,
past for all the KBs, for the record.
Okay, and we will vote on that in just a second. But Mr. Buzan asked you a question, and that we need to cure that if the answer is yes, you cannot get access to critical information through the board doc portal. So that will be to be continued by the staff. Hopefully you can follow up with Ms. Warner and fix that disconnect. All right. For the motion on the table has been seconded, and that is to conduct the hearing, to proceed with conducting a hearing regarding the May 2024 KEB complaint. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay.
No.
No. That motion passes 3-2. All right. But for the record, I would like, Dr. Menzel, I'd like you to check into this disconnect. I'm not going to spend any more time on it. So, all right, we are going to move to executive session. And in order to do that, that item does require a vote. We have an executive session proposed to discuss and obtain consultation for legal advice regarding item 12A below with the attorney or attorneys of the public body pursuant to ARS 38-431.03, parentheses, A3. And that action item 12A, I will read, is approval of the superintendent performance-based pay 2023-2024 in accordance with ARS 15-341, parentheses A39, and the board-approved performance-based pay plan. I move into executive session for this purpose. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Sanowski. All those in favor of moving into executive session, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say nay. All right, that motion passes 5-0. All right, folks, we are going to move rooms. You are welcome to stay. All right, we are going to, I move to adjourn the executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Sanowski seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes 5-0. We're going to resume our regular meeting. You need a vote. It doesn't require a vote, right, to resume our regular meeting?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Buzan. All right, we are going to appreciate Mr. Buzan's legal advice in executive session with respect to the approval of the superintendent performance-based pay for school year 2023-24 in accordance with ARS 15-341, parentheses A39, and a board-approved, based on the board-approved performance-based pay plan. Now we will have discussion on what that number should be, as stated in executive session and as shared with us through Dr. Menzel relative to the board-approved performance-based pay plan. Some goals were completed in full, some were completed in part, and others were not completed. Their 100% fulfillment yielded to $10,800. The partial fulfillment, it is up to the board to decide, and I'd ask for discussion and/or a motion of whether to assign the partial completed goals of 50% of the weighted amount of the board-approved specified goal quantity, monetary quantity, or a 0%. If a 50%, that total is $4,968. If a 0% is assigned, of course, that number is 0. Is there any discussion or a motion on the board or on the floor? Anyone would like to make a motion?
Yes.
Ms. Sanowski.
Thank you, Board President Dr. Hartwells. I would like to make a motion that we abide by past practice and split the partially met areas of Dr. Menzel's pay for performance area, coming up with an ending total of 36.5% of the qualifying pay for performance amount. And Dr. Hartwells, I believe you had that number. And if you could share that with us.
Yes, I do.
It's 15.
It ends up being 15,000. Oops, sorry. Just give me a little pace. Okay. Let me pull up my spreadsheet, please. Give me a minute.
I had that written down. Apologize for the delay.
Assuming the partial completed goals are assigned to 50% of the corresponding weighted amount that the board assigned to those specific goals, that totals a 36.5% of the total performance pay, and that number is $15,768.
That is the proposal that I am making, that we reward to Dr. Menzel for his results on his pay for performance plan.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? I will second that motion. All those in favor of the motion on the floor to award $15,768 in performance pay to Dr. Menzel, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay.
No.
Abstain.
That motion passes 3-1 with one abstention. I will note for the record a proposal, Mr. Lindsay, which I think was a good one, and that is to offer clarity when we do the performance goals for the current school year for you in the coming month or so on what partial completion will look like instead of having to be in this predicament that we were in this evening. I think that was a good suggestion. All right. We are now moving on to governing board reports. Do any board members have governing board reports they'd like to share? Ms. Sinowski?
Sure. Thank you to everyone who played a role in our Back to School rally. I believe it met its purpose, and I think it was the right foot to start our entire school year off showing value to every employee of our school district. So thank you for everyone who put that forward. It was a joy to attend both sessions.
Any other board members have governing board reports? No? All right. With that, future items. Would anyone like to request future items? And I will just note that during the discussion this evening, I have the following 2 future items relating to 8G, the second read of policy KJA that Ms. Warner requested that we tabled this evening, as well as a policy review and possible amendment of policy DJE, and that was in light of the items that Ms. Carney pulled with respect to the contracts. Are there others? Ms. Carney?
I would just like to make sure that that agenda item includes a discussion with the board members about what I discussed with that language and how you feel about it. I would like to have a real discussion on that before we get into changing policy. So I'm not looking for an agenda item on change DJE. I am looking for a discussion amongst the board on how we feel about removing best practices of the not to exceed language on all contracts.
Okay, so for these future items, I just want to remind all the board members that you are to notify the superintendent in writing, so we can just articulate in particular your specific requests. Board Member Carney, it would be important to have that in writing pursuant to policy BEDBA. Thank you. Are there other future items? Okay, all right.
I'm sorry, mine's still on. Can I continue with the future
Oh,
agenda
yeah,
items?
if you have another one, sure.
Okay,
yeah.
I had submitted in writing to you and Dr. Menzel 2 future discussion agenda items, so you have those. I did receive response that you received one of them. I did not receive a response that you received the other, so I will re-forward that and make sure you.
Yeah.
We have 2 that will be on the August 20th agenda.
Okay, because
Can you
I
tell
only
me what-
received
I have-
one response from Libby on one. I didn't know if maybe that is for both, but I sent 2 separate emails, so I wasn't sure if you got it or not. I can re-forward it tomorrow.
If you could re-forward the second, the one you didn't get a response from me, because I don't recall seeing a second
Okay.
item, so thank you,
So
that would be
tomorrow I will do
helpful. Okay, great. I will just make a note, I'll look for those. Any others? All right, very good. Next meeting will be August 20th, Tuesday at 6 p.m., a special governing board meeting at the Mojave District Annex. And with that, I move to adjourn this regular meeting of the governing board. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor for adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, that motion passes 5-0, and the time is 4 p.m.